And I was telling you about our special guest earlier, Lee Chambers. Now, I have spoken to him some months ago on the afternoon show, and it was part of a project that he was part of, so we didn't get really into depth about his story. Now, he's recently won Startup of the Year at the National Startup Awards. He has autism and years ago had an illness which left him hospitalised and unable to walk for quite some time. In fact, he had to relearn completely how to walk again. Originally from Bolton, he now does lots of work around inclusivity. He's a psychologist and a wellbeing consultant, and he started telling me more about his business, Essentialise.
We set up Essentialise in February 2020. Obviously, great timing, as you can imagine, what happened a month later. And a lot of the things that we'd planned kind of went slightly to pot. But ultimately, we are a wellbeing and inclusion company. A lot of what we do is helping HR teams to be able to actually deliver wellbeing effectively, helping them to measure it, helping them to know what activities make a difference, and making sure that at the end of the day, the wellbeing activities that are doing include everyone in the workplace.
So even though, I mean, I can completely understand that it's not great timing, as you say, to launch something right before a pandemic. However, as we know, there were a lot of businesses for whom, you know, it sort of benefited in a way because their services were needed. Did you find that with yours, given the climate that we're in?
So initially it was quite challenging because a lot of the budgets that normally go to this kind of thing were going to, you know, the things that actually bring in money or were keeping businesses afloat. But what it did do is, firstly, as we were a startup, we were already in a place where we were quite agile and, you know, we're just starting. That's allowed us to shape what we do based on all the dynamic aspects and all the turbulence that was happening. And secondly, you know, companies started to become more aware of health. We all did through that pandemic period, and now coming out of the other side, it's become, you know, quite a receptive time for what we do, and that's really made a difference as we started to grow.
Well, I mean, talking of growth and coming through those difficult times, it seems that you've done it with shining colours because you've just won an award at the National Startup Awards. You got the award for Professional Services Startup Award. I mean, that. Tell me how that must feel, because it's really difficult running your own business, no matter what the business is. To get that award must have been pretty special.
Yeah, so I mean, the recognition really makes a difference. There's no doubt the past 2 years has had a lot of ups and it's had a lot of downs. There's been a lot of days where, you know, we've faced real challenges that we've had to overcome. And, you know, in business, you're so often working to the next thing, making sure your clients are getting the best service possible. And, you know, I honestly believe sometimes I don't stop. I'm constantly doing things. I'm everywhere. I'm keeping the team, doing what we're doing. And, you know, it becomes, you get into a bit of a rhythm. And the only time you really stop to reflect is when you have those moments where a team of judges have kind of interviewed you, sat you down, really got you to think about your business, and then you've had to stop and reflect on what you've done. And in those moments, you're able to celebrate the small things that you've achieved, and to have a set of judges say, you know, you're someone who should win this award, your business is, you know, doing great things, really makes a difference, because at the end of the day, we're out there to do great things. We really want to make a difference, but we don't actually realise that on a day-to-day basis. And having someone stop and say, you're doing great stuff, keep going, is, you know, it really helps to just keep us resilient, even as we face the challenges that we face.
So those moments are really important, as you say, and you do a lot of work, as you've just outlined, you know, considering how companies can be mindful of the well-being of their employees. Given that you're doing all that for everyone else and running the business, how do you make sure, you know, that your well-being is looked after and you've got that balance?
Yeah, so it's such an important thing, and obviously I'm pretty passionate about it. A big part of setting up the business was due to my own health challenges that I've come through, and that's really given me a lot more understanding of how it impacts individuals and businesses when people are not well, but it's also made me very mindful about how I manage that. I spend a lot of time in nature, and the biggest kind of thing for me about keeping myself well is my children. They are pivotal to what I do. I always make sure I put that time in the diary. It's, you know, it's in so many ways, it's not something I can ever take out. It's like a meeting with my own investors and shareholders, and I actually refer to my two children as my board. So their meetings are more important than any other meeting that I can have during the day, and that just
they
keeps
probably
me
tell
balanced.
you what to do more than anyone else. That's
No
what
doubt.
kids tend to be like, isn't it? How does it help you and inform your work when helping others in, with the workplace, communities, organisations, and so on?
Yeah, so I think there's a number of different ways it does that, Stacey. Firstly, I'm able to actually share that story and share the vulnerabilities that quite often give other people a chance to, explore their own sensitive aspects as well, and actually show that you're able to, share those negative emotions and that you shouldn't suppress them, but you've got to find ways to express them healthily. Secondly, it's helped me to think about how other people going through adversity, at what point do they accept and stop suffering, and then find, the treasure that's on the other side of that, because you can grow through trauma, but you have to find a way to be able to do that effectively. And thirdly, I suppose from a business perspective, businesses are up and down. It's a real journey. You have to be resilient, and you have to be able to be quite flexible at times and find your ways out of the everyday problems that you face. So for me, it's actually in many ways been a journey physically, but the mental journey of going through that was actually a lot bigger, and has allowed me to become more vulnerable and sensitive, more wise in many ways, and more realising that, the failure of my body has actually allowed me to become stronger mentally. And when we think about in business that we face challenges, sometimes they can look like threats, sometimes we can feel like we're failing, but actually quite often it's a sign that we can step into growth and step into something different, evolve, do things differently, and really be able to, see what we can achieve. Because getting back on my feet when I thought at times I might not has actually shown me that things might be more possible than we believe that they are, especially when we start to think and really decide to chase something intently, like to get back on my feet so I could take those steps with my daughter.
What a lovely story that was what motivated him, and he's taken more than a few steps with her now, which is absolutely brilliant. Okay, the second part of my conversation with Lee about what he went on to do from there coming up.